I'm reading this story for Miss Maria Vasilchuk, whose birthday was yesterday. Also, yesterday we celebrated the independence of Ukraine, and I'm sure this day is very important to you, Miss Maria. I'm also reading this story in the memory of your husband who fought for our independence and for my reading. So, yeah, hope you enjoy. Fairy Tales for Fearless Girls. Maada and the Mountain Dweller. On an island off the coast of Canada, there lived a princess of the Haida people, the daughter of the village chief. Her name was Maada, and she was proud and spirited. Too spirited, some thought. Her parents wanted Maada to get married and settle down, but Maada had other ideas. She loved being free to run barefoot along the beach and roam the mountain trails. Suitors came regularly to the village to ask for her hand, but Maada turned them all down. Now, Maada's grandmother was the keeper of a special box filled with dry herring raw on kelp, which the Haida call Khoa and consider a great delicacy. She was supposed to keep the Khoa for visitors, but she had a soft spot for her granddaughters, and she was always spilling silvers to Maada and her little sister Kilsa, then pretending that one of the dogs had eaten them. One day she just fed the girls the last delicious morsels of their year's row when news came that another suitor and his family had arrived on the shore by way of a beautifully painted canoe. Maada's father sent this man to take the visitors of this handsome cedar wood house. Then, dressed in his finest robes, he ordered the traditional dance of peace and welcome to be performed. His wife went to fetch some coal for his guests to chew on until the proper feast was ready. When she asked for the coal, the grandmother told her that the last of it had gone. "The dog ate it," the grandmother said as usual. "Really?" said the chief's wife, suspiciously eyeing her two daughters who were sitting nearby. "Have you two seen anything?" Maada and her sister couldn't answer. The mouths were too full. "Open your mouth!" their mother shouted at Maada and saw the coal inside. "Such a greedy girl!" she raged. "You may as well marry the horrible old mountain dweller. His house is always crammed with food." Maada was angry and hurt by her mother's harsh words. That night she went to bed, which she whispered to her sister. "I'm going to marry Mountain Dweller," she said. "At least he lives far away from our mean mother and all these annoying suitors." "If you're going, I'm coming with you," said Kilsa. So the sister laid the long wooden dishes in their beds, covered in fur ropes to look as though they were tucked in their bed. Then they crept out of the cedar house and into the dark woods. When the girls did not appear next morning, their mother went to wake them up. "Get up," she said as she shook one of the piles of furs. "Our guests are starting to wonder where you two are." She pulled one fur cover back, then the other, only to find that the beds were empty. The princesses had run away. At once, a group of hunters was sent in search of them, but the sister managed to hide up a tree and stay out of the way. Then, when the hunters had moved on, Maada set off up in the mountains in breakneck speed. "I'm famished," her little sister said. "There'll be plenty to eat when you get there," replied Maada. Tired and hungry, the girls carried on by the steep slope. Before long, they came across a little mouse trying to get onto a big tree stump. "Poor little mouse," said Kilsa wearily. "There you go," said Maada, gently lifting it up onto the stump. Just when they had heard a small squeaky voice. Come in," the voice said. "Welcome to my humble home." The girls noticed a tiny house lavishly decorated with intricate carvings. "Mouse Woman!" the little princess squealed in delight, for Mouse Woman was famous. She was known for her great wisdom and for being a guide for wayfarers. "You help me," said Mouse Woman. "Now it's my turn to help you." She gave them cranberries and roasted salmon to eat. "Now, my dears," she said, "what brings you to the mountain?" "My mother said I should marry Mountain Dweller," Maada replied, blinking back her tears, "because she thinks I'm greedy, but I'm not. I'm going to get away from her." "I'll take you to Mountain Dweller," squeaked Mouse Woman, nose itching. "But be warned, his house is guarded by terrible beings." "Terrible beings?" wailed the little princess. "I want to go home." Maada had no intention of turning back now. "Mouse Woman, please tell me all of the dangers," she said, much more bravely than she felt inside. "I will tell you about 3 of the dangers," Mouse Woman replied, "and give you the magic to overcome them. But I'm afraid I can't let you tell the 4th. You'll have to deal with that by yourself." Mouse Woman told Maada about the hunting dogs, floating waterweed, and crushing rocks that guarded Mountain Dweller's house. Then she gave Maada 3 gifts, a magic knife, a knife sharpened in stone, and a magic fish, which Maada put safely in this pouch at her waist. Just after sunrise the next morning, Maada boldly headed out along the trail, with Kilsa following behind. Before long, 2 snarling hunting dogs rushed at them, ready to pounce. Maada threw the magic fish at them, and they quickly gobbled it down, and magically they turned into playful puppies. chasing each other's tails, and the girls were able to slip straight past them. Soon they reached a mountain lake that was completely smothered with long green strands of tangled waterweed. A canoe was waiting for them, next to a tree covered in thick moss. Using her magic knife, Maada cut off a large clump of moss and tucked it in her boot. As they paddled across the lake, the strands of waterweed began to close from both sides, threatening to capsize the canoe. Maada tossed the moss into the water, and at once the strands moved aside to let the canoe pass. They weren't out for danger just yet. On the other side of the lake rose crushing rocks, ready to crush shut if they tried to pass through. As the rocks began to move, Maada hurled the magic knife sharpening stone into the gap. At once the rocks shrank back on the other side, and the girls raced safely through. They found themselves in a flower-filled valley, where Mountain Dweller's splendid wooden house stood. Just then a young man appeared from the trees. He was dressed in fine skins and furs and carrying a hunting bow. "Welcome, princesses," he said. "What brings you so far from home?" "I've come to marry Mountain Dweller," replied Maada. "I am Mountain Dweller," the young man said. Maada was surprised. He wasn't old at all, and he seemed quite nice. She smiled at her sister, and he led them to his house. Inside, Mountain Dweller's house was even more magnificent than it looked from the outside. It was decorated with stores and fabulous carvings and paintings, and turned with huge chests of precious furs, not to mention piles of food boxes and bowls. Soon they were tucking into the most delicious meal they'd ever eaten. "I'm off hunting," Mountain Dweller said later, picking up his bow. "Please make yourselves at home, but don't look behind that screen whenever you do." He pointed to a large screen that stretched along across one corner of the room. The girls looked at each other. They were both thinking the same thing: the fourth danger. As soon as Mountain Dweller had gone, the princess had heard noises from behind the screen and smelled meat roasting. But there was something else in the air which made them shiver and pull their furs more closely around them. "Perhaps it's an evil old woman cooking," whispered Maada. "But we're not going to look," whimpered Kilsa. "Are we?" Mountain Dweller did not return until late in the evening, and the early next morning he headed back out. Again, the sisters had heard noises and smelled cooking from behind the screen. It was the same for the next 4 days. "We can't carry on like this," Maada sighed. "We'll have to face the fourth danger, whatever it is." Then, taking a deep breath and grabbing a tall stick of firewood, she pushed the screen aside. Behind it stood a hideous old woman with long white hair and evil red eyes. As the woman reached a claw-like hand out to grab the princess and throw her into the fire, Maada bashed the crone with her stick, knocking her into the cooking fire. The woman went up in a big cloud of choking back smoke, which turned into a thick cloud of gnats. Then Mountain Dweller returned the night he was overjoyed. "You got rid of the evil that plagued these hills for so long," he cried. "I can't thank you enough." Then, all 4 dangers over, he guided them back to their family's village, bearing lots of gifts of food and fine furs. When they were nearly home, they heard the distinctive sounds of mourning. What happened? When they saw their brother, who shrieked that he had seen a ghost. "My sisters!" he cried, racing back to the family longhouse. "I've just seen them!" "You can't have," replied his mother, her face streaked with tears. "They've been away for so long now, they might be dead." At that very moment, the princesses reached the family house, accompanied by Mountain Dweller. Clinging to her mother, they promised never to run away again. "But I thought we were getting married," Mountain Dweller asked Maada. "We were," Maada smiled. "But it wouldn't be fair, Anita, though I asked to marry just to teach my mother a lesson. I hope we can still be friends." Mountain Dweller agreed, and so, with no hard feelings, he went back to his valley, promising to visit from time to time. And Maada went back to doing what she did best, running barefoot on the beach, roaming the mountain trails, and eating coal with her grandmother. Glory to our soldiers.
Glory to heroes. Happy birthday and glory to Ukraine.